You're doing things to hurt my children.
I think all of her hair is falling out.
This is a disaster.
These right here, all these them fell out.
I wouldn't even feed this to my dog.
I feel awful about this.
You seem kind of busted up.
Pulitzer Prize winning journalist Charlie LeDuff continues his investigation of the water scandal in Flint. People are still suffering while politicians play games and point fingers.
Ed, the window's open. I know you're in there.
Plus, we'll explain the firestorm over Trump and his quip about the Second Amendment that took him off message and burned him yet again. And Scott Smith is back in the hot seat for our quiz show on oddball moments in politics, and you can help him play along. This is Money, Power, and Politics. Okay, on Monday, I predicted that Donald Trump would bounce back from his rough week by staying on message and avoiding unforced errors and distractions and likely gaining some ground in the polls along the way. But then the very next day, he said this.
If she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that will be a horrible day.
Well, Trump blamed the media for misinterpreting him, that he wasn't suggesting violence. On that point, I guess Paul Ryan misinterpreted what he said, too.
I hope he clears it up very quickly. You should never joke about something like that.
Trump says he meant gun advocates could deal with Clinton by exerting political pressure, not shooting her. But then why would he consider exerting political pressure a horrible day? And that's where he left his quip open to troubling interpretation at the very least.
Maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that will be a horrible day.
Yeah, Michael Hayden, former CIA director under President Bush, said if someone else had said that outside of the hall, they would be in the back of a police wagon. Well, Trump supporters say no one in their right mind would think that he really suggested shooting his rival. But beyond arbitrating what he meant, Trump should realize the impact of his words and how they could be interpreted or misinterpreted by people who are angry and unhinged. At the very least, it took him off message yet again. And with that, I'll revise my prediction on Monday night that Trump will gain ground in the polls this week. Matt Towery will have our new poll results in Florida. That is tomorrow night. Meanwhile, tonight, we're continuing our 6-month investigation of a scandal and a national disgrace. Americans were poisoned to save a buck. Our government failed us in Flint, Michigan, and our contributor Charlie LeDuff shows us how and why our government is still failing us.
We're lepers now. You know, we have to go, people, you guys take baths? Can you take showers? Yeah, we can. At caution. Why at caution? Because our government didn't care. And they still don't. And it hasn't went anywhere, and it's time now.
Flint. Remember Flint? What's going on with the water? Turns out, not much.
I stopped paying my bill. I haven't used the water. You know what I mean? You can't use it for anything. What can you use it for? Even showering in it, you start itching, you dry up. So what good is it to you?
Governor, you just became aware of this, everyone else?
It's been more than 250 days since Governor Rick Snyder admitted that Flint had been lead poisoned through its water pipes after his appointed emergency managers decided to switch the city's water source to the contaminated Flint River in order to save some money. So far,
What the hell's going on in Flint? When are we going to get something done?
Well, things are getting done, Charlie. Again, there's a process.
List them.
Yeah, in terms of things getting done?
Yeah.
Again, there's been a lot of fixture replacements in the schools. We're seeing improvement there. In terms of additional phosphates in the water lines are being recoated. There have been pilot lines taken out. There's been 2-3 dozen lines already coming out.
Yep, a couple dozen pipes. And wait, it gets worse. Now Flint doesn't know where its long-term water source will come from or its permanent backup water source. And whatever it turns out to be, it's going to cost us at least another $35 to $70 million. And according to the state, that could be as much as 2.5 years away.
And there is a lot of discussion about the overall system. Most of those, the starting point for those discussions is really with the city.
The city's in charge or the state's in charge?
The city's in charge of their water
The
system.
city's in charge.
Yeah, again, with support from the
So we followed the accusing tip of the governor's finger to Flint City Hall. Mayor Karen Weaver's signature is required to continue the funding of Flint's new water system, known as the KWA. But she's stalling, and she's not explaining why. Instead, Mayor Weaver held a press conference to insist she's not guilty of accusations that she embezzled water donations.
And this will be my last comment, but it's interesting to me that my ethics were in question.
So that's your update. Flint's a mess. Now this brings us back to the still unanswered question. Who decided to make the switch to the Flint River in the first place? Some quick background here. How would Flint pay to link up to a new $300 million water system when the city was broke and under state-appointed emergency management? Well, here's part of the answer. Flint switched from the more expensive Detroit water to the cheaper Flint River water, but charged the citizens the same price for the water. Now the difference in price was funneled back into upgrading Flint's water treatment plant and infrastructure in preparation for the new KWA. There's just one problem here. The necessary upgrades weren't made to the plant, and the people were served water not fit for a pig.
It's freaking ridiculous.
Hey, how are you?
Dane Walling was the powerless mayor at the time of the switch, but he was also chairman of the board of the new water authority, and he was put in charge of the water plant by the emergency manager, and he was the guy who switched off to Detroit water.
You were intimately aware of what was going on. You were in charge of the water plant. You want to take responsibility.
Well, it's important that, and I ran for re-election when this water crisis began. So everyone in this community had a chance to ask me questions, to know exactly where I stood. The reality was that Flint was under a state-appointed emergency manager for 4 years. I didn't make a personnel action. I didn't make one purchasing decision. So it's not fair to blame me or the city council or the community for what was done by the governor, the emergency managers, the State Department of Environmental Quality.
So we followed the former mayor's accusing finger to the then emergency manager Ed Kurtz's house. Kurtz is a former president of a commuter college who signed off on the Flint water switch. When he saw us, he closed the garage and front door.
Ed, the window's open. I know you're in there. Ed, I need to know why you made a decision that ended up poisoning 100,000 people. Ed, who advised you to do this? Did you come up with this on your own, Ed? That's an important question. Who told you to do it? And I wonder if they're gonna raise his taxes. No, they're gonna raise our taxes for his decisions. Using the Flint River as the primary drinking water source. Signed, Ed Kurtz.
This is what we get. Thanks, Flint. Appreciate you.
We have a series of long-form reports on the water crisis on our YouTube channel. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page. You'll also find other investigations, extended interviews, as well as humor segments and prior shows that you may have missed. Coming up, Scott Smith joins us for our Oddball segment, and you may not believe what we found and how it may play out.
In sports, Scott Smith makes us call the plays. But in politics, we put him to the test. Time now for Call It with Scott Smith.
And here he is, our sports director, Scott Smith. Round two here. You missed a couple last week, but in the scheme of things, you did pretty well. How do you feel today?
Well, batting 600? I'd say those are Hall of Fame stats.
Yeah, if you can keep it up. Now, let's see if you can. We're going to start with Bob Quast for Senate, an ad. Take a look at this.
Hi, I'm Bob. I am running for Iowa's open seat in the U.S. Senate. Term limits for Congress need to become the 28th Amendment to our U.S. Constitution. I believe in every aspect of our Constitution, which even a baby knows includes the Second Amendment.
Hey, even a baby knows includes the Second Amendment. So what happens next? He cries like a baby. He threatens to castrate a sex offender. He threatens to boycott the state of Florida. Or a baby just magically strolls in and narrates the rest of the ad.
Oh man, I'm leaning between A and D. Let me go A.
You're going to go A. He cries like a baby. Okay, let's see how it plays out.
If you are the sexual predator and sociopath who murdered my sister Lynette, and you come to my front door to do harm to my girls, I'm going to use my Glock to blow your off.
There you go.
Wow.
Didn't see that coming.
No, that was a sharp right turn.
0 for 1 today. Yeah, that just came out of nowhere. Next one. This is Natalie Tennant, Secretary of State of West Virginia. Take a look.
Where do they think their electricity comes from? You and I know it's our hard-working West Virginia coal miners that power America. I've fought to protect our coal jobs right alongside Joe Manchin, and I'll stand up to leaders of both parties who threaten our way of life. I'll make sure President Obama gets the message.
All right, what's the message? Does she A, shut down the power grid and cause a massive blackout? B, have Mitt Romney step into frame and say, I'm with her. Yeah. C, have Chuck Norris step in and say, she's tougher than me. Wow. Or D, a talking dog says, inexplicably, I like turtle soup.
I'm going to go C. Let's go Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris. Let's see what happens here.
I'll make sure President Obama gets the message.
You are off to
that was a tough one.
You're doing good last week. You mixed that together. You're still having a decent average. Okay, next up, we're going to go up to Canada for this one. Wyatt Scott. Candidate for Parliament, Wyatt Scott. Take a look.
Hey, I'm Wyatt Scott, and I'm running for Parliament for the new riding of Mission Matsqui, Fraser Canyon.
All right, Canyon, what happens next? He crashes on top of a dragon, catches someone dropping out of the sky, he bumps fists with a space alien, he destroys a robot, or it's all of the above or none of the above, something totally different.
You know what? This has not been a good day for me, so I'm just going to go all in. All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
That's your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Take a look.
I'm an independent candidate, and I'm here to fight for Canada! University is too damn expensive.
Hey, thanks, mister.
Services like healthcare and social programs should be expanded, not cut. The indigenous people aren't even protected by their own government. Change is coming to Canada, and I'm here to lead that charge. Are you ready for the shift? I am. My name's Wyatt Scott, and I'm running for Parliament! Left right, left right, left right, left right, left right. I'll get you.
You nailed it. He did all of those things, and you nailed it right there. So that's a nice
did he
recovery
win?
there. Yeah. No, well, he didn't win. He didn't win.
He should have won with
But
ads
he had
like
the
that.
most interesting ad.
My
That one he wins.
Yeah.
Okay. This one you probably know. It's a classic, a viral hit, but it was one of my favorites. This is the campaign manager for Herman Cain, Mark Block.
Yes.
He says something here. Take a look.
We've run a campaign like nobody's ever seen. But then, America's never seen a candidate like Herman Cain. We need you to get involved because together we can do this. We can take this country back.
All right, what does he do next? Does he eat a ham sandwich in taking the country back? Smokes a cigarette, chugs hot sauce? Or at that point he jumps up primal scream like Howard Dean?
Well, the Howard Dean reference, I mean, kind of taking back the White House. Let's go Howard Dean. I hadn't seen that ad. I'm going to go Howard Dean.
Howard Dean. So we're going to take this country back. What does he do next? Take a look.
We can take this country back.
I had seen that ad.
Oh, that's right.
I had seen
and there
it.
you have the
Yes,
slow
I
smile
forgot.
from Herman Cain, too. That was an instant classic. So that is what we have for round two.
This
We're
is
going to
not a
bring
good
it back,
day.
though. Yeah,
I
but
need
it's-
redemption.
You're going to have redemption next
Okay,
week.
good,
Let's play
good,
again.
good.
All right, we'll see you next week.
Coming up, we'll go back to the map, show you what's changing and what to expect by the end of the week.
Okay, it's map time with Evan. Evan, you look at the map here. Let's look at Wisconsin. We have a new poll showing that Hillary Clinton has tripled her lead there by Marquette. That's 15 points up, so not going to Trump, but going to Clinton, let's say today. You start looking at the numbers here, and Trump's reaction has to be sort of, ugh.
Well, you're right, and it's hard to see where Trump finds more than one path to the presidency, which goes through Florida. So let's assume that Trump would win the state of Florida, not nearly set in stone, but let's just assume for argument's sake that he does win Florida. It's still very difficult to see how he wins, especially when you consider that Wisconsin at this point looks to be blue. Pennsylvania,
Certainly leaning Hillary Clinton's way.
Certainly. The polls have shown that Pennsylvania is increasingly out of reach for Donald Trump. We saw a 10-point lead for Hillary Clinton there. And then also Colorado, a very important 9 electoral vote take there that appears to be in the Clinton camp at this point.
Gives Donald Trump very little room for error.
It does, and one of the things that we saw in New Hampshire is recently that Trump is having a more difficult time even with Republicans there.
Resigned from the Republican Party.
Former Senator Gordon Humphrey, a Republican, a very well-respected person there, said no way that Donald Trump should become president of the United States. That makes New Hampshire even more difficult for Donald Trump to win because he is such a respected figure. And look at that, 273, 193. She has 3 more electoral votes than she would need. Now, one other thing I want to point out here is right now the polls are showing that Hillary Clinton is doing better amongst Democrats than Donald Trump is doing with Republicans. In fact, in a recent poll, Hillary Clinton got 92% from Democrats, Donald Trump only 83% from Republicans. That makes it increasingly difficult for Donald Trump to win in places like New Hampshire, in places like Virginia, and even in places like Georgia. Keep in mind on this map we haven't even discussed Ohio, Iowa, Nevada. Nevada also looks increasingly blue at this point. The paths for Donald Trump are increasingly narrowing.
If the election was held today. But the good news for Trump is that you look
It's
at
not
the
held
caucus, it's
today.
not today. The
Right.
caucus was leading big in the summer of 1988, then he crashed and burned. A lot of people don't key into the race until Labor Day, maybe even a little later than that, the debate. So that will be telling, and that ultimately, I think, will be the turning point in the race.
And I would say one thing about those debates, that is the next time that Donald Trump is going to have to reset this race. He wants those debates to come as soon as possible. You can be sure of that.
Evan, thank you much.
Coming up, predictions from the Crystal Ball's Dr. Larry Sabato.
You're going to have some receding of the double bounce that Hillary Clinton got, half the bounce from her convention, the other half from a series of mistakes and gaffes that Trump made right after his convention. Some of that recedes, all right? And when we'll get to Labor Day, we'll see the real point spread. But I think it's pretty obvious Clinton is still going to be ahead on Labor Day, just not by quite as much.
And we should get a good temperature check tomorrow because we have a Fox 13 poll out in the field. Matt Towery, our pollster, will join us with the results at this time tomorrow night. Also, Mike Pence will be our special guest. We have him booked as well as John Wilson's My View Now. We will see you once again on Money Power Politics tomorrow night.